Hello, everybody. Welcome back to more political chatter. We are back with another not a 2024 really election matchup, but we are going to be taking a look at what the 2024 election with Joe Biden would look like. With Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, if there was a war in Russia. All right, now this will be a very just interesting election matchup because I really think, based off of the United States' history, I believe that Biden would have a better chance of winning if there is a war going on in Russia. All right, we go back to the 1940s, 1944, and FDR is running for a fourth term, which is unprecedented. People didn't like his third and fourth term because no president had ever served more than two. But there was a war going on in Europe, World War II, and there was a slogan, don't change horses in the middle of the street, or in the middle of the road, whatever it was. We want to keep the current president because of our leadership. Maybe he's not handling the war so well, in Ukraine and Russia, but we don't want a new commander-in-chief, because they could screw everything up. They could screw up all the progress that we've made so far. So I believe that Biden does have a better chance of winning the presidency if there is a war in Ukraine. So we see right here, Russian buildup continues, blah, blah, blah. You've seen it in the news. Russia is, I would say, probably going to invade Ukraine. I would say that chances are most likely that Russia will invade Ukraine and that the United States will get involved, seeing Joe Biden's history, being vice president in the Obama administration where they stayed in Afghanistan, So let's see how this plays out. So I do have Joe Biden here, incumbent president running for re-election in 2024. And I just listed the Republican side as GOP because we really don't know the Republican candidate yet. Again, this is not a matchup. This is if the war in Russia is raging on. So Biden would win California and Washington solidly, Hawaii, Illinois, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, his home state, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine's first likely, all solidly Democratic states, and one district there. And then coming to states like Connecticut and Oregon, I see these being safe. There will be so many more Democrats who will be encouraged to come out and vote for Joe because they don't want a Republican handling a war and destroying all the progress that Biden has made. He hasn't made any yet, but you know what I mean. In 2024, that's what people will be saying. So, it is pretty interesting to look at. So, states like Oregon and Connecticut, I see Biden winning by more than 15% margins here. But state like New Jersey, where we have seen a trend of them turning against Biden, which is only a state that he won by a solid margin, it would be 1.1% away from going likely for Biden in 2020. It went likely for Hillary in 2016. So this is a state that I do think would narrowly be likely for the president. Now going to GOP safe states, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Indiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Now, it's a bit interesting because the war in Ukraine, I believe, would help Biden win Democratic states, more liberal states that usually go for the Democratic Party. But in Republican states, I see it hurting him more. I really do. Because they're going to bash whatever Biden does. Either way, they're going to hate on him, say that he's doing the wrong thing. So in states like Kansas and then Nebraska's and then Nebraska's first congressional district, I think that there will be enough, campaign advertising, not propaganda, but emperor to swing the state into a safe margin for the GOP, even though it went likely for the GOP in 2020. So Maine second is one of these districts. I don't think the war in Ukraine would help Biden, nor do I think in Iowa and Ohio would, because these are two states. These are two pretty. Iowa's very rural, and, the war in Ukraine, it will not be as supported in these rural districts as they will in more populated in more populated states. So Iowa, I do think would stay likely for the GOP. Ohio, I mean, it's a more suburban state. I don't see them liking the war in Ukraine very much at all either, but it's kind of tough to call. But yeah, I don't see the war in Ukraine helping Biden that much in the state of Ohio, and I think it's going to stay likely for the GOP. So the minority votes down in the South and Michigan, Texas, I mean, it's going to stay the same. This doesn't play into categories of voters. It really doesn't. It just depends on where the war in Ukraine where it will be supported most. So states like Texas would stay and South Carolina would stay likely for the GOP. Florida at this point in time, if it was Trump, it would probably be likely, but it could be a just GOP generic ballot. So I do think that Florida would stay lean for the Republican Party. I think Georgia will flip back just because Biden is unpopular and sure there's a war going on and people want to keep him in. Many Democrats want to keep him in. That won't encourage as many Democrats to come out and vote for him as it would if Trump is the nominee, if you know what I'm saying. Because so many Democrats and independents were encouraged to vote for Biden in 2020 because Trump was president. The war in Ukraine, it won't encourage them to turn out for Biden as much. Going to Virginia, pretty liberal state, this is where I really think the war in Ukraine would help him. Would help liberals come out and turn for Biden. Even though they might not necessarily like the rest of his presidency, they will turn out for him. Same in Nebraska, 2nd Congressional District, very densely populated district. I see the war in Ukraine really helping him here. I think he would win it by a lean margin. Along with a state like Minnesota, I think that if we're in the middle of a war, then Minnesota voters will turn out for Joe Biden. And but yeah, I would give Minnesota. Because, there's St. Paul and Minneapolis. There's a few cities there where people will want to come out and vote for him. In Alaska, that won't help him much. That'll stay likely GOP. But in Colorado and New Mexico, 2 liberal states, this is really where the war will help him because they don't want a Republican. Remember, they don't want a Republican controlling this war. They don't, because they don't want to change horses in the middle of the road. We have seen this in American history, and it's, being proved again. I would give Arizona to the Republicans just because of Biden's unpopularity. That will hurt himself and really any Democrat running in 2024. But Nevada is a pretty liberal state. We have to remember that. Trump was expected to win in 2016. Hillary does. And then Biden goes on to win it again. And then, of course, Obama carried it. I believe Kerry carried it in 2004. And I think that liberals will turn out for Biden if there's a war in Ukraine. I really do, because they don't want a Republican controlling the war. So I do think Nevada would stay till Biden. Going to Wisconsin, though. This is a generally conservative state, and this is a state where they will not mind seeing a Republican controlling the war. Wisconsin will stay lean GOP. Moving on to Michigan, this is pretty tough, but I think I will give it to the GOP by a tilt margin. Geez, I don't know. I mean, I don't really see the war really turning out many voters here. Not as much as Nevada, because they're more of a split state and they're more generally conservative. This whole blue wall is more generally conservative than states like Virginia, Minnesota, or Nevada, or Colorado, or New Mexico. So Michigan, I think that with Biden being unpopular and the generic ballot being pretty unpopular too, the Democratic generic ballot, I would give Michigan tilt GOP. Along the state of Pennsylvania, parents will not, this is a state with many suburbs like Ohio, and they will not like the war in Ukraine at all, because parents will tend to dislike wars very much because they don't want their children going to war. So Pennsylvania there. Going up to Maine at large, it would probably be lean Biden because this is a pretty generally conservative state, Maine, and I would say that it would be that they would, they won't mind a Republican controlling it as much. And then in the state of New Hampshire, I think this will be tilt Biden because it is a state that he won by 7 points in 2020, and they will be okay with him controlling the war. But most importantly, it's a moderate state, and this is a state that won't want to change horses in the middle of the stream. So Biden does come closer at the win in many of my predictions where the war is not going on. We have to mostly focus on margins here because, flip states, for my predictions, it varies very much, but really these margins is what is what's gonna help us understand how Biden will do better with a war in Ukraine. He wins Oregon solidly. He carries Connecticut solidly. He wins New Hampshire. He almost wins Michigan, but it's tilt Republican. He wins Minnesota by a likely margin. He wins Nebraska second, and he wins Nevada, very most importantly. And he also carries Colorado and New Mexico by a likely margin. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and I will see you all next time.